Welcome to the Storm Before the Chase podcast. I am your host, Lori Grace Bailey. And I keep doing that. And I've been fascinated with severe weather ever since I was a kid, watching monsoon storms rage over the mountains in West Texas. Thrill-seeking adventurers, including storm chasers, extreme athletes, and weekend warriors who often find themselves pushing the boundaries of life, they all share a collective narrative about the surprising tranquility encountered when teetering on the edge. Individuals fought the bitter battle of profound adversities, many nearly losing their lives in the process. These narratives often remain untold in favor of sensationalized sound bites, and that only highlight the thrill of the chase rather than the long, unpaved roads that they've traveled. It's time to tell the rest of the story. It's time to tell their story. My guest today is the Aurora master, Chris Wicklund. I'm super excited to have Chris with us today. Chris is a meteorologist who works for the United States Air Force in space and weather. That almost sounds like extraordinarily cool. Like, I can't wait to dive into this. A photographer for severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, auroras, and street photography. Chris's work can be seen most frequently on Twitter. Chris also sells prints of his fascinating work of auroras and landscapes at Chris Wicklund. And I'll put a link here for you if you're watching the video here. And finally, if you're on TikTok, you can join him with the rest of those weather nuts at wiki_dubs. Is that right, Chris?
Yep, that's correct.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me on the Storm Before the Calm podcast, Chris. You are number 2 in line. As you know, our good friend Hunter, we just wrapped up that one, had a blast with Hunter, and I am so excited to get to talk to you today because we kind of get to go in a little bit of a little different reach. Instead of just talking about tornadoes, you are the kind of guy that likes to blast these incredible images that I have never seen, by the way, of these reds and greens and these skies that most people who live south of probably Oklahoma, maybe, have never even seen in their lives. And we're talking about auroras. So welcome, Chris. But how did you eventually fall in love with all of this? And tell us a little bit about who you are and who Chris is and about this space and weather stuff, man. How cool is that you get to actually do this for a living and study that very same thing?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Lori. So I didn't really, I didn't get into auroras until like mainly 2 years ago. I predominantly have loved weather most of my life. I've been too fascinated by it. My parents have like emailed news stations being like, "Is this child okay?" and stuff like that. And I really was fascinated by storms, but also was really afraid of them. Did not ever like sleeping with them. And through high school, I was like, can I even do this as like a major? And then I learned that there was a thing called meteorology. I was like, okay, cool. Let me just go to school to study meteorology. I did not know that there was so much more math and science and physics involved with it.
No kidding, man. That's what kept me away
Um,
from it. That was scary stuff for me.
I mean, I got through it. I graduated, thank God. But halfway through junior year, after doing my first storm chasing like tour trip for an entire 10 days, some seniors were like, we have a different trip involved. It's like a night trip. And it's not that long. It involves the sun. Maybe we could see auroras. And I was like, isn't that like an Arctic Circle thing? Like, why would I see it in Minnesota? It's not gonna happen
Right.
here. I didn't know anything about what a geomagnetic storm was or what the sun can do with the CME or whatever. So these seniors took me out to like a Minnesota cornfield in northern Minnesota, and then I saw auroras. Not didn't necessarily see the auroras at first. Like you could see them through a phone. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
this is
wow.
pretty neat. And then after a while, it got to a point where it's like it shimmered. Full on green, don't need a phone.
What?
You saw everything, all the colors without a phone. And you can imagine like see a bunch of meteorology students yelling in a field when a tornado happens. Imagine the same thing at night when like an aurora
Uh,
shimmers, like when it pops up in real time. When that happens, it was like the same feeling, yelling
no
in a
way.
cornfield.
Is it instant? Is when you
Um,
see an aurora, is it like, is it gradual? Like a supercell coming closer to you? Or is it just like, did someone just turn on the lights?
you can kind of sense its direction. Like it moves back and forth. but when it really pops, like when the colors start popping, it's like someone turns on a light switch and then it dances in all different directions pretty much at a very fast speed. It's
Oh,
almost as
wow.
fast as like a tornado as sometimes if you get really fast auroras. Um, but ever since that time, I was like, wow, these happen more often than not. Let me get infatuated with this. So throughout 2021, 2022, 2023, I was like, this is gonna be my niche or my thing now. Like, I want to see colors. If I can't see tornadoes in Minnesota because I don't want to travel that far, I'm gonna go see auroras. So every single time there was a chance, I went out, and it worked based on learning forecasting skills over time.
Yeah.
And then I grew and grew, and then 2023 is when really popped for me.
Yeah, I know
Especially
that.
in the
That's when you
March and
you
April
popped out onto the
shows.
scene with your photos
Yeah,
and stuff using your just your iPhone and whatnot, whatever you had on you, right? You grabbed
mhm.
whatever and you were out
Yeah, an
there, man.
iPhone, and then eventually I got my first camera, which was a D3500, and I used that all of 2023 for the shows, but it was really funny. I wasn't anticipating this event in March, but I was in March I was down in Iowa for a severe weather conference with Cameron Nixon and Hunter folks because it's like the annual NWA conference where speakers go up and share their talks about new research in severe weather, events that have happened with NWS offices and stuff like that. Throughout that whole day, the first day, I was watching space weather while the talks were going on. I was like, there's something going on. I have a feeling. And near the end of nightfall, I was like, okay, the auroras have been seen throughout the entire world at certain latitudes. I think I would be able to see in Iowa no problem. And funnier part was watching other colleges that were there at the conference being like, Chris, am I gonna see auroras for the first time or something? I was like, I don't know. You should come out and see them with me. So Cameron and Hunter, and then I took like all of the Michigan CMU students out to a field in Iowa, and it was like almost overhead for like a good 4 hours.
Man.
And a lot of those students, it was their first time ever seeing that from Michigan.
Right.
So that was a very proud moment from me.
Oh, I bet. I bet. So you something that sparked your passion that you took other people out there for and new people also, just like someone took you out there and you saw it, you got to spark that in others as well, and you got to see it with all these other college students.
Yeah, it was great. And then the month after was the April event where everyone across the United States was just like, "Oh my gosh, it's in Oklahoma, it's in Arizona, or whatever." And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm underneath it. I have like one of the best vantage points. And then just like throughout all of that, I was like, can I even, since I've dipped my toes, I even did my senior thesis on space weather, which is weird in a
Wow.
meteorology department. Everyone was like,
Yeah.
I don't know that expertise, but if you want to do a thesis, we'll support you, but we can like help you because we don't have that knowledge.
Yeah.
So I did like a really long thesis experiment on the Space Weather Prediction Center. Did a lot of rewrites because you gotta tailor that to an audience and make it palatable for to understand because space and physics is
Sure.
really hard to discuss at a general level or at a college level. That's not like I'm throwing random terms at you. You have to understand. So eventually, I had that under my belt, and I'm like,
Yeah.
can I? I want to work in both worlds. I want to work in weather. I want to work in space, but I can't obviously do it both at the same time.
Wow.
So I tried NWS first. Got denied because I didn't graduate yet. Because apparently I need to graduate now. Tried private sector. That kind of fell through, and then space occurred, and then now that's my route of job is somehow someone using my Twitter platform, someone from the Air Force saw that I photographed auroras consistently, and they were like, we someone noticed, and they were like, we noticed you do this a lot. You like space weather. Do you want to work for the Air Force? And I was like, in what? In space weather? And they're like, yeah,
No
you should
way.
do that. Okay, cool.
Oh my gosh.
So, so now I'm here in Omaha, Nebraska, working in space weather.
Okay. Okay. So you did move out of there. So when you first started or when you were growing up, did you always live in Minnesota? Were you Minnesota born and raised?
Yep, I was born in the Twin Cities and I lived there for 22 years of my life.
Dang, dang. It's so far. I've only been to Minnesota once and I chased storms all the way to Mankato and I was not a fan because everything had lined out. There was a tornado somewhere further north in Minnesota a couple of years ago. Uh, was not fun. Beautiful area though, but it was always chilly and cool. But not Minnetonka. There's some waterfalls there near that area, and it was just absolutely
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. I could have stayed there and just it was very peaceful. Lots of lakes in Minnesota and lots of mosquitoes. So not a fan of the mosquitoes. I did not realize that even though it's sub-zero temperatures often in Minnesota, that the mosquitoes still love to hang out in the lakes in Minnesota. So it's just
Oh yeah,
crazy.
they're really bad in the summer, especially because we have so many lakes.
So growing up, I wanted to ask you, we'll start a little bit earlier, but can you, or actually, let's just go into chasing. I really want to talk. You did tell us a little bit about, just you've always had that passion. Your parents knew that you were crazy for this stuff, and they set you on the right path. But can you tell me one of your most memorable experiences while chasing? What was that like? And were you alone? What happened with this? Like, and
Um,
was it storms or was it auroras? I'm only lucky enough to know that last year there was auroras in Arizona, and I should have gone out. For me, I was like, it's not going to happen. I stayed in my house, and then I later see pictures from Spike and Becca and John Serlin and Kevin Rumkowski showing pictures from frickin' Tucson and seeing the Sonoran Desert light up with aurora lights. Just such a miss on my part. I should have gotten out. Never stop aurora chasing. Oh my gosh. So yeah, tell us about that.
well, if we're going with like a most memorable chase, let's go. We could go with me and Hunter's experience probably with Spalding, Nebraska last year. Was that was a chase I've never would have anticipated in my head. It was just the day before, me and Hunter, we went out. I asked him like the week before, I was like, you know what? I really like this synoptic setup. Do you want to like have a little mini chasecation or something like that in the middle of May or on my birthday? Because I would love to do it. And then he was like, sure. So we went out. First day was May 11th. We went out to Kansas. It was basically a blue sky bus because we went to Greensburg, and then in between us, 350 miles apart, you had the Cole, Oklahoma tornado happened there. And then you had 350 miles to the northwest was Cameron and several other chasers getting like several tornadoes underneath a low pressure system. So then just me and Hunter are sitting in Greensburg just kicking rocks at that point.
Wow.
We can't go anywhere, it's too far away. We're in the dumps a little bit.
Right.
More like Hunter was in the dumps. I was like, you know what? We still got more days. It's okay. So we stayed in Airbnb, woke up the next day, May 12th. I looked at the satellite loop the day of the synoptic low, and I was like, you know what? That looks great. That looks great for 8 a.m. I have a good feeling. And then I was looking at the models, and I was like, wow, look at this, all this moisture being pulled into this low pressure system in Nebraska. I don't think it's a 2%. I think there's a lot of opportunity for tornadoes today. And Connor was not on board. He was not on board that morning. I was like, you know what?
He was
Optimism. It's my
salty.
birthday. Okay. It's my birthday. We got to have
Oh, it was a
optimism.
birthday. Wow.
That never clicked for him until like later. So we met up with Cameron and Connor Healy in like north central Nebraska, right when the low pressure was starting to pop. And we were like, this is starting to look good. We're seeing thunderstorms for once. That was like the first time that year I saw lightning. That's crazy.
Wow.
Um, because it was dry last year a lot of the time. Because
Oh
after
yeah.
May 12th, we didn't get rain in Minnesota for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Um,
I was desperate to head
so
back
we met
up
up with
north, by the way. I did. I wanted to go to South Dakota and it just the flow wasn't up there, man. It was pretty dry up there.
mm-mm,
Wow.
yep, yeah. So met up with Cameron, and then suddenly a storm pops off that everyone's drawing their attention to near like Spalding, Nebraska. And
Oh yeah,
we're like,
yeah.
okay, we should probably go there. So we go over there, we go to the start of it, and Hunter makes a sharp turn. We watch the initial part of like a first funnel cloud that kind of goes over the vehicle. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, I've never been this close to tornadoes before. Yeah, this is a little stressful already. Okay. He was like, "Yeah, point the camera out the window. Let's just point it up." And I'm like, "Okay, okay, I'll do that." It passes us, and I'm like, "Okay, I don't know what's next." So we go back north, and then suddenly our convoy with Cameron decides to turn on a dirt road, and I'm like, "Let's not do that. I'm not gonna do that in the middle of rain." So we drive north for a while. We start getting into heavy precipitation, and I'm like, "Okay, we're probably in the center of the cell now." And I'm not on social media at this point. We're kind of in the hook at this point, and
Yeah.
we turn east on a road, and Hunter's main actions for me was to look south. Just look out the window, don't look at your phone, just watch the environment, see what happens. I look out my window for a while, and then I see that there's a tornado, and I'm like, "Oh, is it actually?" And then it was like getting way bigger than I thought, and I was like, "Oh, that's a wedge, I think, and it's to the south of me. That's not good."
Yeah.
What? So I told Hunter, "Stop the car. I don't know what. Don't drive. Just stop in the middle of the road.
Let's
There's no one
figure
in
out
front of
what
us,
we're
behind us. I
doing.
don't know what to do.
Right.
I think it's gonna hit us."
Oh, crap.
And then Hunter had to do like a 5 minute Chris calm down to me because I was kind of panicking.
Yeah.
He made me do like a finger test. Well, he did it, and he was like, "Watch where the tornado is. Is it going left or right? It's
Nice.
not going directly toward my fingers. It's moving away from us." So I was like, "Okay, that's good. That's good. We're still within like a good mile or two from it, but
Yeah.
it's still pretty close." So we figured I was going northwest. So we turned around and we just watched it. So a good couple minutes go by. I'm just recording it, taking pictures, being like, "Wow, this is surreal. Never have seen a tornado this close before." And then the rear view mirror, there's Dominator 3. And then like 90 cars
Yes.
behind it. And I'm like, did we accidentally drive in front of the Dominator? Which was funny. So then we just like parked on the shoulder. Hunter went out his like driver's side mirror and did like this whole "go for it, get that intercept." And I'm just sitting there
Really?
like, is this like reality TV right now? Like, what's going on?
Was this when
And then I
they had the
watched the
drone? This was the Spalding one. I think that was the same storm, right? They had the drone
yeah,
watching the Dominator intercept that same tornado.
mm-hmm,
Was that you guys
yes.
in their footage going by them at one
Yeah, we were
point?
just like parked on their shoulder, and you could see
Oh
that
shit!
the drone flies by a car that's just sitting there, and it's just me and Hunter. And then we watch the Dominator turn left, and then the tornado goes into the Dominator, intercepts it, and I'm like, "Wow, what happens?" And then we drive up to that turn. The whole Dominator crew's like yelling, screaming, jumping up and down in their car. We
Right.
turn north. We're just like, we gotta continue the chase. It's not over. And I'm like, it's not over. It's 2 p.m. We still got time. I'm here like I'm doing the adrenaline crash now. Like it's
Yeah.
getting tired. I'm getting tired.
Oh, I know that feeling.
I called my mother and I was like, "Hey, so I was like really close to a tornado and it was pretty great, but I think I'm done."
Wow.
So I showed her pictures and she was like, "Wow, whoa, 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 that's way too close." And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe it
Hmm.
was." 20 minutes later, a second one appears. And it's like the same size,
No
maybe a
way.
little bit slimmer. And it's another good stovepipe, and it goes behind us, and we park on the road again. And Hunter's like let's watch it come to us. And I was like, isn't it gonna intercept us? So I get in the car, I start panicking again. I just start taking pictures. I just give up. I just like watch it go within like 500 to 1,000 yards to the driver's side of the car, and then it goes obscures in the rain again. I was like, okay, okay, second big tornado of the day. Okay, fun.
Dude, that adrenaline, man, must have been insane. And that was that you had
Yeah,
two that day, right?
yeah. For that day, it was two big ones, and then we decided to drive all the way back to Omaha because everyone was reporting like this huge tornado near Omaha with a PDS, and Hunter was like, "Let's go
Right.
for that one next." And I was like, "Oh,
Yikes.
okay, yeah, let's go for a third one." So we drive all the way, and then we didn't see much for the rest of the day because we just came across damage paths. It was storms became very scared with rain, lots of hail. And we were just like, let's call it. At the end of the day,
Jeez.
Hunter took me to like a Mexican restaurant, and I had a good margarita for my birthday.
Nice. What a birthday, man. I would gladly take a birthday if I could see tornadoes, if I could do this or that. And so, Chris, this was such an experience. It sounds like you had to decompress, but being able to chase on your birthday and not only capture one, but two tornadoes, and then, just even have more of a chance to get out there. Boy, how did you I mean, you said you had a margarita for your birthday, so that I would say that you probably decompressed okay. But, how do you mentally prepare for those kind of challenges? You know that you're going to get into it. If you're with Hunter, you're going to, as Hunter says, get up close, shoot wide. You know that you're going to be flirting with disaster. That in itself, it brings a lot of emotions, a lot of stuff that you have to keep in check, where you have to keep your head on a swivel going into these tornadoes, man, or going into the storms. And you don't have, Kevlar or whatever, the rhino lining and stuff like that. You don't have that. You're in a normal car, and you have to keep your head on a swivel, and you also have to help Hunter too and keep him sane. Or if you're chasing by yourself, you have to make sure that you head back home and that you can get back home to the loved ones and do it all over again. How do you mentally prepare for that stuff, man? I know it's for me, I'll just say that there've been the tornadoes that I've seen, I've got emotional. And some of the most amazing things that I've seen, there have been times where I cried. Like I was just watching the sunset and I was by myself in the desert, like way away from anything. And it was such a surreal moment. I think it was a catharsis, but there was a purging of just some pent up stresses and stuff. But you have to mentally prepare yourself because you do have to keep your head on a swivel. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so it's it's important to keep your expectations pretty low on chasing because
Hmm.
A, you don't want to get burnt out. Two, it's good to set expectations because then you can plan your day better and stuff like that. So it's all about experience. Over time, you gain more experience to go chase
Right.
better or do better and not go home feeling defeated, or to have a good day and not be mentally exhausted or pretty depressed. Yeah, it does come from experience. There was one chasing trip, the first chasing trip that I ever went on, that really, really humbled me emotionally.
Hmm.
And it took that experience to move me forward. But when you see a tornado doing destruction to a town, and all you can do is watch from afar, and you could be in danger too because you're kind of in its path as well, there are so many emotions through that. The day of Selden, Kansas, 2021, me and my crew, we got we had a crew of 8, and 3 times during that day, during while the tornado was touching down, we got separated from cars, and we had miscommunication where we got stuck in the mud. People were not radioing in. We had bad cell service. You could not call each other, so people were thinking, oh, maybe the other crew's in trouble or something like that. So there was a ton of like anger, tons of sadness going into that event already as it is.
Hmm.
And then eventually we came up with a plan like, let's just go to the east side of Selden, Kansas, watch the tornado, and no more separation. Go to a radar truck, because there were a lot of radar trucks there that day, and just sit. So I'm the driver, which is a lot of responsibility, especially on like a large chasing trip.
No doubt.
Um, so I had 3 other people that I was driving. One was like doing their meteorology, and 2 were new meteorologists who were just like really wanting into film stuff. And I'm driving and I have to make decisions. And one of the key rules that we made during that trip was if you ever feel unsafe, you leave. And we parked about a mile east of Selden, Kansas, and we watch this tornado go and to start destroy stuff in town, right in the downtown area. Buildings start flying. You see cars, especially other chasers, driving into the cone in the middle of the town. And you think it's coming this way because it's not moving any other direction. And you start yelling a couple times over a 15-minute period, like, hey, we should start get going, okay? And no one's listening to me for like that good 15-minute period. Everyone's like, no, it's not going anywhere. It's moving like 2 miles an hour. It's gonna go away from us or something like that. So you're sitting there, you don't even want to video the tornado anymore. All you're focused on is just getting out of there. So then the tornado hit like a large silo, and the debris field got very wide within a good 30 seconds, and then the entire crew that was watching it ran to the car. And I was already sitting in it. I was like, I'm ready to go. And they got in there like, Chris, you got to drive. Like, I don't care what you do, drive away. We're going to die. And I was like, okay, great. Thanks for listening. So I drove away and just had all that debris field damage fresh in my mind. And it was just like very, very humbling. Like, I didn't know what to do. Like, when you see destruction, you don't know what to do. Like, do you go help? Or do you watch the tons of, because there was already like tons of emergency personnel there. They were waiting outside the town watching it go in. So there were already people driving toward it when the town got destroyed. So I was like, I don't think I need to help. There's already tons of emergency personnel just waiting. So we met up with the other crew we were separated for at least most of the trip. And me and another person, we just sat in a car and we kind of just like had a good mental breakdown about, because we have not seen a tornado damage a town before. And I was just lost. I didn't know what to do. But the woman I was sitting with, my friend, she was just like, I hate seeing that stuff. Like, it's uncontrollable and it sucks, and I can't do anything. So a lot of sad emotions that day. But it helped going into future chases and going and seeing other chasers going and doing search and rescue and doing my own personal chases with tornadoes, that if you have a better mindset going into it about what tornadoes can and can't do, or weather in general, you'll be better by the end of the day. You'll have to definitely deliberate with yourself, but that trip was quite a humbling one.
Dang. I still have yet to see a tornado damage go into a town or something. I think the one at Stratford could have very well moved into it. The one Stratford tornado last year, I was in such a good place, a position for it, and had already seen the Encino one, and a couple of days before, the two from Encino, the little anti-cyclonic one, was so cool to see too. And for me, it was right in front of us. It was so amazing to see, but I have yet to experience that, and I'm trying to continue to prepare for that. Going into a town and seeing damage and seeing people injured. The nature of my other job, my main job, of course, has been, and I've done that before already. I've seen a lot of stuff that I don't want to have to deal with, but you see a lot of injury and stuff like that, and it's tough to deal with, but I'm still trying to prepare myself mentally for it. And as far as storm chasing, and I want to be ready and willing, and everybody has to make their decision. Yesterday, I heard Jason Pearsoff talking about that. And some people should not mess with other first responders who know what they're doing, and you could actually put yourself in harm's way also. So there's a lot of elements going into it. It's not a one size fits all as far as responding to a major disaster. So, but what about have there been times also, in addition to this, have there been times when you faced significant challenges or setbacks in your journey? How did you navigate through them? It wasn't all fun and games, I'm sure, just learning to grow up and be Chris, right?
Yep. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So have there been times where you faced these, significant challenges growing up? Did you find some challenges as you were growing up, or maybe more recently, where you felt like, man, how am I going to get through this? You felt hopeless, or you were struggling with things and you had to reach out either to friends or really dig deep or find something personal to become stronger in and overcoming that.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple things. One is definitely trying to overcome loneliness and moving. Moving to Omaha, I thought would just be easy and I'd be fine, but it really has not been fine. And it really has switched me as a person, because I was so used to, throughout high school and college, being a part of groups. In high school, I was a part of theater. I was a part of choir. I was a percussionist, always doing these after school activities to have fun and be away from home, kind of, and to just kind of like be a sense of community. And then in college, I kind of did the same thing. I was a bunch of part of groups. I was in
Right.
a fraternity with a bunch of people, and I led a group of people for like an entire year. So I was constantly doing stuff to keep myself occupied. And then through leaving, graduating, and moving to a new job, to a new place, you don't know anybody necessarily except for your coworkers. It's a lot more different. I used to be really bad at communication, especially because I was doing so many things. And now it kind of just switched because now I'm constantly trying to communicate to people. Like I'm trying to like catch up with friends through text or through calling and seeing like, hey, what's up? Like, how you doing?
Yeah.
Um, and I never did that through high school or college. Like I never checked in. Now I'm checking in all the time with people, or
Really.
constantly texting people, or doing all that stuff just to keep myself occupied. And
Sure.
maybe it's definitely something for therapy for something down the line.
Dang, dude. Having to do that and having to what you're doing, checking in with people and finding yourself like, hey, I don't want to bother people, right? Like I know I struggle with that same thing, and loneliness is almost universal. I think every chaser I've talked to has struggled with that, and now living on your own in Omaha, living away from other old friends and everything. I just know that it takes a lot of guts to be able to reach out and say, hey man, how's it going? What's going on? And maintain those connections, because you have, at least I do. I It always goes into my mind that I don't want to bother. I don't want to bother Chris with my crap, or even just checking in like he's probably like what do you want now or something. And I think that's such a myth that and it's so untrue that people you're afraid that you're just going to bother people. You know what I mean? So it's really healthy to learn to reach out and check in like you're talking about. So I think that's a really good thing that you're doing, because it's when you stop checking in to me that's when it seems like I become the most depressed, because I feel like nobody gives a crap about me and they're not thinking about me, and it could be just the opposite, right? And I'm sorry to hear that you're going through that. I mean, it sounds like just another step in your process, being able to do these cool things and get paid for it, and now you have to reestablish yourself and maintain those friendships.
Yep. Another thing is just like when there is some tough situations going on with more of a group of people and not just yourself with another person, is also a harder thing to understand or to give your own opinion with.
Mm-hmm.
And another example can be chasing with a large group of people.
For
I
sure.
don't necessarily talk about chasing in 2022 because it was not a good time. It was really bad. Um, I didn't, over time, I really didn't want to be on a trip anymore. Like, I thought storm chasing was dumb after that
Wow.
trip. Basically, me and the same group from 2021, except for one person, went out on the trip again, and we traveled from Minnesota all the way to Morton, Texas, which is like almost a 24-hour trip. After a while, it's just like everything that looks the same, and you get delirious, and you're just like sitting for way too long, being like, "Oh, we have to get to that target
Yeah.
to chase a marginal risk or whatever." And we got there. We finally get there the second day of our chasecation because it was taking a while. And I honestly didn't have high hopes for that day. It was already a marginal. We're like, wow, we're starting chasecation with a marginal. Yeah, we're seeing thunderstorms, but will we actually see them? We haven't gotten much rain in 2022. All the storms might be elevated, and then if they ever put out outflow, here comes a dust storm. And before the trip even started with storms, we were in an oil field, and a dog comes out of nowhere, and it starts coming after me, and I am kind of afraid of dogs after some
Cow. Crap.
experiences. And it's just a small beagle, but it's running after me. I'm like, oh my god, it's gonna attack me or whatever. But it wasn't attacking me. It was just it wanted like a pet or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's cute. And it went under one of our cars, and it looked dehydrated. It looked like it needed food. It was very skinny. I was like, oh my god, there's just a dog out here in Morton, Texas that needs help.
Mm-hmm.
So the first red flag that came up was the car that my car wanted to take the dog to a shelter, and we did, but the other car did not want to do that. They were just like, we should just leave it here. And I'm like, no, that's not a good idea. The storms haven't fired yet. We have time. And then in between, while we did that, storms fired, and we were in Morton, Texas, delivering a dog. The storms blew up. A lot of them became outflow dominant. Here come the dust storms. So now you can't see bases anymore. You can't see cloud structures. So
Right.
we're like, okay. The lead car decides we're gonna go to Dallas. No questions. So we're like, okay, let's go home. 45 minutes later, Morton, Texas happens. That whole dusty wedge in the middle of a hail core,
Yeah.
and that was the kicker for that entire team.
Oh, so
Very
you all missed
depressed.
the Morton. You missed the Morton tornado. Oh,
Yep.
that's tough. That's tough.
When you drive almost a whole day to go there, you're sitting in the town, but you leave early.
Yeah.
That was sad. Which caused a rift. Basically, my car, the person who brought their car, was like, I don't even want to be here anymore. Like mentally, I don't want to chase.
Right.
I just want to go back to Minnesota. I don't see any chances for storms. I don't want to be here anymore. Someone was trying to argue that they hated being out here for their mental health, and people were like, we have mental health issues too, and discounting them. Eventually, we got a group of us to go home, and then the other crew stuck it out for like the rest of the week. And then nothing
It's
really else happened that season, anyways. It was just a couple of derachs in Minnesota that we chased,
when you
and
have
not really.
so many people together though, like that, man, and hurt people, don't they? Like when you start feeling the things and you start disagreeing with each other, you're bound to have these kind of disagreements. I mean, even with my own friends, and looking back at the last few years, I'm just like, man, how can I and how can we do better? How can we not at some point do things? It takes a toll. Storm chasing is not easy. It looks like, everyone's having fun and Rabbit's pulling out his map from Twister and we think that it's all this cool stuff. It's not that cool when you're dealing with every human element and emotions and people's mental wellness, and you mix them all together, you cram them into a car for hours at a time, and then you have to make decisions, and people want to be on top as far as making decisions. And if those people make bad decisions, then everybody starts to feel it. I remember when you first started out, you were pretty down. You didn't feel like you had the right gear. I remember you would share photos and we're all going, holy crap, this is great stuff. And you're like, I don't know. I think I should quit, man. This sucks. I suck. And we're all like, what are you talking about? Right. And, but you persevered, and God in you that you had that in you. If you just keep pushing, and you're going to continue to grow. And I've seen you. That's why I'm so excited to have this chat with you, and just continue to get to know you more as a friend, that you just have this growth and you can see it. I know being in it, you can't necessarily see the plant growing and the flowers blooming, but when you're being objective and you see that person over the year or over time begin to grow, it's really a cool thing. And I've just seen your growth, your personal growth, and your images and the quality and the content that you're sharing. Seems like you have much more of a purpose in what you're doing now. And I just wanted to ask you, what has persevering, what has choosing to say, okay, I'm going to keep doing this, what is your perseverance in your pursuit of extreme weather and space weather? What role has that played in deciding to just keep going forward?
I think it really comes down to just stubbornness and inspiration most of the time. Like, I'll be like down occasionally, being like, yeah, these shots are okay or whatever, and I'll just see other people's shots or other outlooks or whatever, and I'm like, you know what, I want to do that too, or something like that, and then I just like it reinvigorates me to do it again.
Yeah.
Like if there's space weather or there's a chance for like weather around me, like a good example would be like everyone that saw Ashby, I don't know, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I never planned on even chasing that day, so I don't have that many emotions tied to that. Like I don't like it was a nice tornado that everyone saw, but I never planned chasing, so I don't. It doesn't connect with me that I have to have all these feelings for a chase that I never went on. So it's kind of it's a little different with auroras because they happen pretty much if they're at night,
Right.
and they're harder to predict. But I there's a much better shot at going out at night and seeing some colorful stuff rather than going and trying to pinpoint a tornado.
Yeah.
And it's more just stubbornness. I want to get shots that inspire me to keep going. And last year, with the lucky stretch of March and April, because it was like back to back. Like I had a tornado. It was Kyoto. Then there was the March 23rd Aurora storm. And I was like, okay, I'm getting a little lucky now. Then there was April, and then there was Spalding, and I was like, okay, enough.
Huh.
This is too much of a lucky stretch, but maybe it wasn't that lucky. Maybe it was just me and forecasting paying off, and I didn't
It
even
is.
know.
It is. It's a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I like to attribute things to luck all the time, but if you have a consistent trend of you're seeing things consistently and you're there, it's probably not luck anymore.
I love
So
that.
now
Yeah.
going into this year, I'm in Nebraska now. I have higher confidence to go chase stuff out on the plains if they occur. And if there's a good enough things with the sun, I'm gonna book it north.
Yeah, I love that perseverance, and it's coupled with a continued movement towards always learning, right? Learning to forecast, learning to be better, learning to do things, and instead of giving up, you're just deciding to incorporate it all, and understanding that the failures aren't necessarily as a result of your knowledge; it's a result of sometimes you're just unlucky, right? Even the best meteorologists get it wrong a lot. This isn't
Mm-hmm.
something easy. A little bit more grace doing that. I heard Jennifer Brinley will just say the same thing. Just learn to give yourself grace. I think it's so important to do that. I think we're too hard on ourselves often. I hear people on the other side saying we're not hard enough on ourselves, right? We need to push ourselves harder. I don't know about you, man, but I've pushed myself so hard and I've failed so hard and I've overcome so much that at this point I'm just like, I think I need to learn to give myself some grace and to be able to reset, right? And then I think
Mm-hmm.
what's important to me also is I say this frequently, but if you take a pause on your hike of whatever the mountain that you're climbing, if you stop midway, and you turn around and you take a look at all the mile markers, all of the other hills and all of the other challenges getting to where you are today, you'll be surprised. You think that and when you look back in hindsight, you think that you forget that you've overcome so much already. And I think it's important to look back and go, oh my goodness, I never thought I'd even get here. I think it's okay to do that. I think it's okay to forgive yourself for making some mistakes, but the fact so important. And, you still have a little bit of story left, right? That's how I feel and be going into my 50s. I feel like Frodo at the end of Lord of the Rings.
I've only gone in the state twice to chase, but I think South Dakota is a great place to chase. It's just so
Absolutely.
scenic, especially if you're near the Badlands.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get storms, if you can get pretty lights, it's a great place to do it.
So I was there back in 2020, I think, when that Crawford supercell was almost, they didn't even have a marginal risk, I think, and they finally updated it after that Crawford supercell came in, started in Lusk, Wyoming, and moved into South Dakota. Oh my gosh, that's still one of the most memorable supercells I've ever seen. Just watching it, just across that beautiful landscape of South Dakota, just like,
Funny enough, I have never gotten a supercell with structure.
really? You did Kyoto, right? That had plenty of structure in it.
Well, yeah, the tornado had structure, but like I've never
Yeah.
seen a supercell have like like those classic motherships. I've never seen that yet.
Really? Oh my
Mm-mm.
goodness. Encino definitely was a good one. So I was going to ask you if you had a bucket list. Might as well ask you now. What's your bucket list this year?
Now that I have a new camera that I just bought, I'm hoping that A, I could try sprites, B, a supercell with at least a structure, and then C would be traveling to other states, or A, oh, no, not A, or leaving the country.
That would be cool. I would love to chase storms in Australia someday, but Sprites are always on my bucket list, man. And once you see them in person, once you actually see them with your eyes, and then capturing them is one thing on the camera because the camera can see so much more. And then you're like, holy crap, these are awesome. But being out, we actually get sprites down here in southern Arizona, or we see them as MCSs, mesoscale convective systems, tend to form during the monsoon deep into Mexico and deep into Sonora and Sinaloa. And when those form, I'm at the right distance here in southern Arizona on a clear night to allow the mosquitoes to feast on my flesh so I can have a chance at capturing sprites and blue jets. And I've been fortunate to capture them. But when you see them, when you finally see your eyes, by the way, when you're looking at sprites, you see this, it's almost a white because I don't think your corneas can recognize the red color initially. So they're so fast, but you see this whiteness just shoot up into the sky above the storm, and you're going, what the heck was that? Was that a sprite? And you look at the back of your camera, you chimp the back of your screen, and you're like, no freaking way. And so to see that happen over and over with your own eyes, man, I don't know. There is something that knowing that not very many people actually get to do that and to see that, and not very many people in the history of the earth understood that what that even meant or even had a chance to see it. It's such a awesome opportunity. So go for it. Finally, I wanted to ask you.
Can they be picked up on a lightning trigger?
Lightning trigger, no. I wouldn't use a lightning trigger to capture sprites. If we're going to have a talk about sprites, you definitely need to shoot as wide open as you can. If you have a 1.2, 1.4 lens, and I like to shoot my sprites using video. If your camera can handle high ISOs, if you're shooting in video, I'll keep that lens wide open at 1.2 if you have a lens like that. 2.8 is good too, and bump that ISO up a little bit. But yeah, I do like to shoot video, but I would never use a lightning trigger because that's going to miss it. In fact, okay. I don't even like taking photos of sprites. I should focus more on capturing them in photo mode, but I do love just capturing video now because you kind of capture the experience also. Awesome. Are you going to meet up with some of your friends? You're going to chase with Hunter again?
I think so.
You're not too far now, being from Iowa and Nebraska. Omaha.
Nope.
Yeah. Not that far. All right. Well, let's do a quick lightning round as we wrap up, Chris. I'm so grateful to have a chance to chat with you and everything, but I want to do a lightning round with you real quick, and you got to be fast, okay? Because I go through these. So quick questions. Here we go. Number 1, auroras or supercells?
Auroras.
Oh, really? Wow. This is over. No, just kidding. That's amazing. That tells me that I really, really need to see an aurora sometime. Okay. Tornadoes or structure?
Tornadoes.
Okay. Even though you want structure this time. What's your favorite weather phenomenon? I think we already covered that in the first one. Really? Shelf clouds. Shelf clouds are cool, especially when they come right towards you. Subi or Forerunner?
Neither.
Okay.
No, I never had either one.
Okay. All right. What do you drive?
A Nissan Altima.
Okay. All right. Do you chase in the Altima?
Yes.
All right. Not bad. Not bad. I know a lot of people that use cars to chase also. What's one word to describe the feeling of conquering a challenge?
Exhilarating.
Oh, I love that. That's a good one. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
A lot of people like sunset. I think Hunter said sunrise. And what's the top item on your bucket list?
Structure shots this year.
Structure. I love structure, man. I am the kind of photographer. I'm so glad that you said that because I do love structure. I love when you get the bass just churning and it's just like everything is just doing. Never stop chasing, but never stop learning. I heard Rachel Sanders say that yesterday, and it was just such a cool statement to never stop learning also. And I think that's what you talked about today is that, you're going to keep pushing forward because you want to continue to grow in knowledge and you're going to find the success with a little bit of luck and a little bit of learning. I think that's one thing I've learned by having this conversation with you today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. You're welcome. And it's been a pleasure. I hope I get to see you, man. I need to give you a big hug out on the plains. If I see you, expect a big bear hug. I might look smaller than you on the screen right now, but I'm probably twice the size of you. So just expect a big bear hug when we see each other on the plains.
I can't wait.
Chris, it's been wonderful. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Storm Before the Chase. Look I hope you look forward to it next time, and we'll be talking to everybody soon. Everybody have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
Adios.